Hello everyone, it's Susan from Saddle Pedals. I'm a potty training consultant, and throughout the month of June I'm sharing some replies to some of the questions that you have sent in with regarding to potty training. The first one that I'm covering today is about when children have a fear of doing poos in the potty or the toilet. It's a question that a number of you sent in. It's also my most common request for support is for this issue within my one-to-one potty training service. And I first of all want to just reassure parents that they're not alone. It is quite a common issue with potty training when children don't want to do poos on the potty or the toilet. A lot of parents will say to me that they're worried that their children are the only ones who are experiencing this, and I just really want to reassure you that you're absolutely not alone. It's a much more common issue than you think. It's just something that people don't really talk about. And I'm hoping that by doing this video that we can kind of let other families know that it's not just yourselves experiencing this. So what is that? So some children might be potty trained with wee, but absolutely refuse to do a poo in the toilet or the potty. Um, it kind of divides into two groups. So there's those who won't do a poo in the potty or toilet and actually are trying to prevent doing a poo anywhere. And we would call that like stool holding, where they have they want to avoid basically pooing, so they start holding it in, and these children can get constipated quite quickly. Then what happens is they eventually have no choice but to go, and due to the constipation, it's quite uncomfortable. So when they do go, it only reconfirms to them that pooing isn't a very pleasant experience because it's uncomfortable, and their brain basically picks up the message that pooing should be avoided at all costs, and so the cycle continues. If your child is avoiding doing a poo, potty, toilet, or trying to avoid anywhere, I would definitely recommend speaking to your GP, because if this child is constipated, we're only going to reinforce that habit every time they go. So we really need to address the constipation as the first stage. For all children, I would be encouraging a good fibre diet, plenty of exercise and water intake just to keep those bowels healthy, unless a medical professional has told you otherwise. But for these children who are in this chronic holding cycle, it's really important that we manage the constipation first. The second group, which the children with the treated constipation will then enter, are those who are not constipated and but for some reason don't want to poo on the toilet or potty. Now, quite often this is linked to a fear. For whatever reason that fear may have stemmed from. Sometimes it might have been after a period of constipation. Sometimes it could feel like they're feeling pressured to go, and any sort of pressure can kind of make us feel resistant to something. It can be hard to get over that. Sometimes it can be a fear of like the flush in the toilet or the splash. There can be a number of reasons. When a child has a fear, we really have to appreciate that that fear is real to them, even if it's something that we're not afraid of. There can be a bit of an idea that if a child isn't going in the potty or toilet, that you just take off the nappy pants, give them basically no choice. It wouldn't be a technique I would use. It can be quite a good technique for children who don't have a fear. But for those who do have a fear, I don't think it's very fair. Because I'm afraid of heights, and if you dangled me at a great height, it's not going to cure my fear of heights. It's just going to make me quite distrustful, and also, if anything, just reconfirm that fear. And so when these children are afraid, we need to support them with the fear. We need to help them overcome that, rather than expose them in a way that they have no choice. It's going to be more successful, and it's going to be more child orientated, more child focused. So what do we do? Well, what we want to do by all course, we want to avoid that first group where the children have gotten into a stage of this constipation cycle. We want to avoid constipation as our utmost priority. So the water, the fibre and the exercise should all be used alongside any sort of behavioural techniques. Then I would be of the view that actually going is better than not going, because we need to keep those boils healthy, or it's only really going to reconfirm that fear. So if a child asks for a nappy that they were afraid to go without it, I would recommend giving it to them. And what we can do is slowly help them with that coming off. So if a child's able to say, I need to do a poo, can I have a nappy? They're actually recognising when they need to go, which is a really positive part of potty training. We also want to help them with whatever the fear is. So say that it is the flush of the toilet, we'll maybe supporting them to get over the flush before we even recommend that they go back to the trying in the toilet might be a good idea, just to try and help with that. Some children, it's a sensory experience, and actually it's the pants being on that makes the poo come out a bit slower, and that might need worked on. So what I would do first of all is we really want to be talking about poo in a positive way. We want it to be something that's not talked about shamefully, which will only reconfirm their fear. There's some research that suggests that you're better just calling it a poo rather than a word such as stinky, because stinky might have a bit of a derogatory meaning, and it might only reconfirm to the child that it's something that's supposed to be avoided. We also want to avoid shame. If a child does have an accident, in their pants, or they don't make the toilet and they're told off, it might reconfirm to them that actually poo is something that they should be trying to avoid. So we want there to be no shame. So what I recommend is either when the child does go in the pants or in the nappy, is then saying, right, well, let's go and bring it to the toilet or potty, whichever you're aiming for, and literally just tip it in and say, poo likes to be in the toilet or into the potty, and then flushing the chain together quite cheerfully, saying bye, and then bringing the child to put their dirty pants in the wash basket. It's absolutely not in a punishment way, but it's in a way that's trying to create a dialogue in their brain that actually poos belong in the toilet or the potty in a way that there's absolutely no pressure. It's talking about poo, just normalising it. So perhaps there's a baby in the family and you can be saying, oh look, the baby's done a poo, or you have a dog and you talk about the dog poo, or there's some great books which are all about poo, just to help get the conversation going, that it's not something that's taboo, that shouldn't be spoken about. Even when a family member's going to the toilet, they can say, oh, I'm going to do a poo, or I've done a poo, just to normalise it and let children understand it's not something to be shameful about, that it's just a normal bodily process. Can all really help with just taking that pressure off. And then what do we do next? So we've got the child, they're kind of coming over the fear, but how do we get them from that nappy or the potty for then going in the toilet? Well, you can always suggest that maybe they just sit down on the potty or the toilet, whatever they prefer, with the nappy on. Just to give them a little bit of security, and then gradually take that away. So perhaps, that they have the nappy in the toilet, and so it's avoiding a splash. Obviously, you're going to have to take it out before you flush, or in the potty, just so that, again, it's not coming out just as fast for them, and that they're feeling comfortable going at a time that goes for them. I would try and avoid any fake deadlines. So sometimes we'll say, oh, I want this solved before I go on holiday, or before I go to nursery, or before I go wherever. And what you're doing is you're putting pressure on yourself, and children can pick up on that pressure, and children can feel that, so then they start to get stressed. Also, they pick up on your breathing and your urgency, and perhaps you saying, oh, we need to get this sorted, and then it just adds pressure to them. And what we need is for them to relax. For them to actually poo, they need to relax that area. And tension, it's very hard to have tension in one part of your body and relax in another. So if you can, even if you are feeling a bit of pressure around it, just try and take deep breaths, and at least give the idea to them that you're not pressured. Nursery is one that people worry about. I highly recommend speaking to your nursery if that's the case. A lot of nurseries will have it in their policy, you have to potty train before they can go. And it's usually just so that potty training is not left to them. They can't potty train all the children. But when there is one of these sorts of issues that are quite common and do come up, they usually will work very well with you. So explaining what you've done, explaining where you are, can be really helpful and can just help take a bit of that pressure off for you as well. On the subject of relaxation, anything that can help them relax. So when they're sitting on the toilet or potty, particularly if they've reached a stage that they want to use it, but they just can't release, anything that helps them blow can help them relax that area. So big deep breaths, as we know, relax us anyway. So anything you can blow, so whether it's bubbles, whether it's like a kazoo, harmonica, like little whistle type things, or those party blowers, can all kind of really help with that. Just take a little bit of the pressure off. No, you must not stand up until you've try and avoid all of that sort of pressure language. Not a big fan of the tablets or phones on the potty or toilet. Obviously if something works for you, then work away, but what can sometimes happen, the children get engrossed in it, and they can't focus, and it doesn't really help, but you don't move on. If it works, then by all means try it, but sometimes it just means that the focus isn't there. And sometimes the potty is easier because the feet are flat on the floor, which helps with release. Or if you're using a toilet, just make sure that you've got a potty seat so they don't feel like they're going to fall in, and a potty step, because the feet really need to be on the floor to help with that release. And if you notice that your child's kind of holding on the side, it can kind of be that they're afraid of like kind of falling in, and they hold on, so they tense, and it's really hard for them to release anything. So something in the hands can help. So something like that sort of whistle can mean that they're not kind of tensing on holding, like that they're nearly on like a roller coaster ride. So yeah, please know that you're not alone. I recommend, just as anything, prioritize keeping things going. Speaking with your doctor if you're concerned that there's constipation there. It will need to be managed first, otherwise you'll just get stuck in this area. And know that you're not alone. And obviously if you need any other support, feel free to drop me a message. Hope this is helpful. Thank you.